Welcome to Chambers Bay, a spectacular layout that sits on the Puget Sound just outside of Seattle, Washington. Designed by Robert Trent Jones Jr., the course opened for play in June of 2007, and from day one, there were always big plans in mind. Once the site of a sand and gravel quarry, Chambers Bay hosted the US Amateur in 2010, and next year the USGA will be back again, this time bringing its marquee championship, the US Open.
Certainly the USGA was interested in coming to the West Coast. They were interested in another municipal site. The golf course had to be right. But they were also here and participating and made multiple visits before construction, during construction, giving good advice about how to design things outside the ropes that would best suit a US Open.
The result is one of the most unique courses on the North American mainland. And as those who tee it up in what is arguably golf's toughest test will find out, the Chambers Bay Links will be writing an exciting new chapter into the US Open history books.
Mike Davis has been especially enamored with the idea of having the US Open on links style golf. It's the most fun way to play golf. There's a certain unpredictability to it that maybe isn't the hallmark typically of professional golf.
Chambers Bay can play as much as 7,900 yards from the back tees, so there are plenty of different options in terms of course setup for the USGA. But it's not the length of the holes that will make this a US Open unlike any other. For starters, there is more room than normal off most of the tees.
The fairways will be wide, the widest of any US Open. It's all going to be about the hole location and the speed of the green. Being able to access certain hole locations may require an angle that's provided only by a third of the fairway. So even though the fairway might be 50 yards wide, you might need to be in a 20-yard section of it in order to best access a hole location.
The greens are also going to play a lot differently to the traditional US Open putting surfaces, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. The USGA prides itself on par being a good score, and the Chambers Bay green complexes will make sure that is still the case.
The hallmark of links architecture is heavy contours in putting greens. Chambers Bay is no exception. Most links golf isn't played at 13 or 14 on the stem meter for that very reason. Every day it'll be a combination between speed and hole location, making that we push the speed, or that the USGA pushes the speed to the limit for without losing the ability to put the holes in the best spots on those greens.
There's also plenty of visual intimidation off the tee and around the greens, because after more than 100,000 truckloads of dirt and sand were moved to help sculpt the course, there was always going to be a lot left over for another key feature of a quality links, the bunkers.
Sand is a major feature on the golf course. Probably nearly as much sand at Chambers Bay as there is maintained turf. Because we're not necessarily talking about individual contained bunkers. We're talking about what might be better termed, waste areas, some of which will play through the greens, some of which will be a hazard for the US Open, but huge expanses of sand that come into play on many tee shots.
Home to 4 very different and very testing par 3s, it's one of these short holes at Chambers Bay that is recognized as a signature hole. As you stand on the 15th tee, there is a spectacular view of the Puget Sound and a fairly intimidating tee shot that could vary as much as 100 yards in length for the championship.
One of the smaller greens, square footage-wise on the course, surrounded on 3 sides by sand. The US Open will probably play it from at least 3 different distances, maybe in that 140 range, something around 165, and then potentially the tee that we built prior to the amateur at 246 yards for a back left hole location.
When you also throw in the very changeable Pacific Northwest weather in the middle of June, it means the passionate Seattle sports fans who sold out all the weekly passes and final round tickets 11 months in advance will be set for an intriguing second major championship in 2015.
The golf course has wonderful rhythm in terms of kind of moving you between playable and difficult. You might have some momentum at the start. You've got a 4-hole stretch in the middle of the front 9 that will be brutal. Will end some rounds for people. Then I think you breathe again a little bit in the late front 9, early back 9, and then from 13 on, you know, it'll be nuts.
For those not lucky enough to make it to the 2015 US Open as a spectator, there is some good news. If you think you've got the game to take on a major championship layout, then why not try playing this stunning public links? Because Chambers Bay is open for business to anyone who wants to play the course.
Totally open to the public, municipally owned, and people that are playing golf here now and people that played during the US Amateur, and many of whom have gone on to play on the PGA Tour and hope to come back and play in the US Open, you know, have characterized Chambers Bay as unlike anything else they've ever seen. And, you know, to be held as truly unique in the eyes of people that have had, you know, pretty wide range of experiences is exactly what we want.